Welcome to the Veterans Who Build show. Today's guest, we have an IDF, Israeli Defense Force, Navy SEAL, known as Shayetet 13. After his military career, he moved to New York City, where he started his real estate built environment trajectory to become a COO and founder of his current company called Chapter. Really an amazing story from childhood through military career and into a growing business and profession, one that he started. I'm really excited for y'all to hear his story, hear his insights. We did unfortunately have some internet glitches. Our team did their best to kind of remove those from your listening experience. So if you do hear any, apologies in advance. We tried to salvage as much as possible. A quick shout out to our subscribers. Thank you. To our listeners, thank you as well. A reminder to please subscribe to our channels, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Any like or comment review does a lot for our channel, so please do that. We read all of the comments. And a quick shout out to our sponsor, Jet.Build. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Ellie Moyal. Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build. Ellie, welcome, man. How you doing today?
Hey, thank you. Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, before we started recording, we just chatted on some mutual connections that we have. So I'm going to give a shout out after the show to those, to that individual in particular, let him know he was on, and I'll bug him also to join the show as well. So always nice to have kind of mutual contacts in this environment, generally speaking, right? Veterans and built.
Yeah, he also had a show, by the way. He also had an interesting show, and he had pretty interesting people coming and talking there. You guys need to catch up a little bit because I'm sure there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to give a formal introduction. Eli Moyal served 5 years in Shayetet 13, that is the Israeli Navy SEALs. Eli then continued into his professional career as an entrepreneur in the real estate industry in New York City for a decade. In that time, Eli founded Chapter, plug is right behind him, where he is the COO. Chapter is a full-service renovation company powered by technology that operates in New York City and Miami. I'm excited to touch on your professional career because I've seen so many awesome designs that you've built out. So just a quick shout out on what's to come when we get to professional. But as our listeners know, we like to start in chronological order. So let's kick it off with childhood. And just a little bit of context for our listeners is in Israel, of course, there is a mandatory enlistment. However, your service is much more than a basic service. Like we mentioned, similar to Navy SEALs in the U.S., you served in the Israeli Navy SEALs. So tell us a bit about where you grew up and what led you to serving in such a capacity.
I grew up in a city called Hadera. It's a big city in Israel, but not, very interesting. So this place that when a lot of Jews came from Africa during the 70s. Basically, they shoved everyone into Givat Olga, and so back then it wasn't like the greatest neighborhood. It was same as my mom around the 70s. They moved from Morocco, and they shoved everyone into Givat Olga, and basically they were housing there for people who were doing Shiva. It's funny because now in life, where I talk with my siblings, we talk about it a lot, but like our character is very because of, the experience that my parents went through. So coming as an immigrant to Israel, have that, notion of that, the African, not educated and, coming with like different set of rules, different set of manners or whatever you call it, and trying to fight the stereotype of the Moroccan Jews in Israel back then. I know it sounds kind of weird. Everyone are Jews, obviously, but a different. With the years, you had the people that came from Africa, then Ethiopia, then Russia, So everyone had to deal with some difficulties. And for my parents, it was very important that we integrate, that we have a better life than they had. So everything that they did, to set it up, from my parents buying an apartment in Shadera next to the best school, because basically when you're in that zoning, you go to the school. So they literally bought a house with all the savings that they had, like one block from that school, so we can all go to that school, and not spending money on anything that is not education and whatever is not necessary. We never missed anything in life, but and very much modest in the approach. And something that also came up is actually, my wife, she's from Switzerland, from Geneva. So she speaks French, and my mom also speaks French. My dad also knows a little bit, but when they came to Israel, they didn't want to talk anything else but Hebrew, because they didn't want us to be different. They didn't want us to have the difficult life that they had when they come, which, is too bad. I wish I had like a little bit of Arabic and Moroccan and French. But I completely understand, where they're coming from. So, values and hardworking and being honest, and it's something that is kind of similar to where, the unit I served in my service. But as a kid, I remember I used to love sports. I was very competitive, and so I got hooked up. I remember I got hooked up relatively late on basketball. So I was like very competitive. Everything I did, I wanted to be the best. I was so competitive. And even in school, I was like in this program that you finish school basically early, all the math, physics, computer science, and all that stuff. And then you're supposed to go to university, and there's like nice course that then you can do whatever, like certain positions in the military. And I finished, most of the subjects that I had to, and then I had a lot of free time when I was like 16, 17, 18, just like focusing on my sport. So I got hooked up on basketball first, and then I was hooked up on fighting. So I did a lot of Muay Thai when I was younger. And I remember, like, even since I was 16, because my parents basically, they can send me to one after school, like whatever I want to do. So I chose basketball, but then I was like, but I want to go to train Muay Thai. So I worked in like, coffee shops or whatever, catering, whatever I could, just so I can pay for that and go. And then I had like other stuff that I would do, but I remember just like keeping myself very busy. I love the physical part. I love the mental part of like pushing, when it's hard, and pushing more and pushing more. And so that's something that kind of, in my high school year, I was really into sports. I was really into what I was doing. And any free time that I have, I would just, grind just to get better, because I always want to be the best. I don't like losing. I get very competitive, whatever I do, if it's whatever, it can be ping pong, can be bagamon, can be this. I'm very, very competitive. I think that drive always to be the best made me also work very hard. So that was me basically when I grew up. And my first encounter with obviously in Israel, everyone goes to the military, and something that is important to, not a lot of people understand, especially people not from Israel. We're going a little bit forward with time, because I want to give that example. I was in the Navy SEAL, and I trained with, we train with a Navy SEAL from the US. So they come to us to train with us, and we go to train with them. And when I spoke with them, you ask, who's going to the military? Because I was trying to understand, like, who is going to the military in the US. So they told me, that's what they told me back then, and they were laughing about it. They said, either your family is like, you have like a military heritage, and like your dad or someone, like people go, so you go too. The second is you're poor, or just like you want the safety of like a job and everything, so you're going to the military. And the third, they told me you're a redneck. It was joking, right? But if you want to understand, in Israel, basically you have a bigger pool of choosing the best people, right? So like everyone goes to the military. So all your friends are also in the military. They're not somewhere else. They're not going to school. So everyone going through that experience. And when you get to the time that you start doing all the tests and figuring out what you want to be, where you want to be in the military, everyone going through that phase as well. And everyone wants to get to specific units, right? So, I'll say that 3 commander units in Israel, like the most elite is Shaldag, Matkal, and Shayetet. And Shayetet is like the Navy SEAL. Matkal is like the Green Forces or whatever. You can help me. What is it called in the US?
I mean, it could be Delta. They're not as specific. Yeah, they're not as specific comparables like SEALs are in a 1-to-1 comparison. But yes, yeah, it's tier 1 units essentially.
I think one is like the V commando, one is the Air Force commando, and one is a regular commando. Right? So when we're like 16, 17, and you start qualifying for the military, it's everything. Going into my sister in the same school that I went. We saw this like video introduction on the unit. Obviously, I could see all the videos. You're like super impressed. I was like, wow. And then they showed him. He was in the same class as me, like the science class. He was like a big guy. So they think that they're the best to qualify to finish the course. They send them to do it before they start the course. So I done the same thing. We've been in the same radio unit in the Shayetet. And I don't know, I connected with the story and I was like, okay, this is definitely the unit I want to go for. I want to be in Shayetet. And a lot of, like kids that go to the Shayetet, all the tests and everything is, there were either swimmers or surfers or this or triathlon or whatever. You hear all the stories. Oh, this guy is this guy is that. And I was like, I have no connection. Yes, I went to the beach, but I'm not such a great swimmer.
Taking a quick step back, because I don't want to forget it, is, I also come from immigrant parents, and you said a few things that I found relevant, and I'm sure other people who have immigrants as parents is, I was upset to not learn their native languages for the same reasons that you mentioned, right? They wanted assimilation, they wanted a better life for me and my siblings, right, as the new generation. Just funny to kind of hear those similarities and play it in my experience. And then the second thing was the way in which they brought us up, learning where they came from, right? You get this different kind of a perspective, understanding that, they came from really a different world, right? Things that we can't understand really, right? And wanting it to be different for us, which I think provides a different element of drive, right? And now going into when you mentioned sports and wanting to go into the SEALs is having that competitive nature, right? To always want to be the best and want to do more. And I think in your experience, which is also really interesting in the ecosystem that exists in Israel, is that when you're next to people that especially, well, then it almost, in many ways, if you have that personality, drives you to do even more. Is that something that you connect with?
Yeah, for sure. Listen, what I always think about it. I also spoke with my father about it. My father, you're talking about like the 60s. My father used to live in a village outside of Casablanca. Right. In a village. Back then, there were like 8 kids. So I have 8 uncles and aunts. Very living in, like poverty and not having everything that you can imagine. And all of a sudden coming to an Israel that's much developed. He didn't even know the language. He was 16. He had to work physically to support his family. So, I'm looking at it today. I can definitely understand why he wanted the easy path for us. Mm-hmm. And I think I went with my course of life much different than what I was educated at home. Mm-hmm. I decided to go and take the risks at a very young age. I was also the young brother by far. So between me and my little sister is 7 years for me. So I grew up already at home. Mm-hmm. They were out of home and I was like the little brother. So I was like, I had the image of a little bit spoiled compared to them. And I remember I used to be asthmatic when I was a kid. And I went to my document and I just removed it and left the signature. I told my parents, I'm going to all these tests. But they were like, well, he's never going to make it. And then I got accepted to Shayetet. And my mom was like, you're not going. I'm calling them and I'm letting them know and this and that. And, it was like, I also did like operation in my eyes because you can't go to the military with glasses. Mm-hmm. So after the Gibush, I scheduled 2 days after I scheduled the surgery that basically the last 6. So they can't tell afterwards that you did the surgery. So I was set. I'm gonna do everything needed to get there. And I think also that's the approach that I took, in the course of all the tests that what you have to do, and in order to get to Shayetet. So basically, you start and you do all the tests, like exams on the computer and whatever, just like to rank your IQ, whatever equivalent to that. And then if you have the physics profile 97, whatever it is, like the highest, then you can go to one day. It's like 24 hours that basically you go with like 1,000 other kids, and every group is like, I think like 30. And then you just like physically, going and doing all kind of drills and whatever for like almost 24/7. And then out of like, I don't know, 30 kids, maybe 4 get to special units. And then you get to, basically invitation to the Gibush, which is like 1 week of basically running, going on the sand, crawling, swimming, it's super hard. And, the hardest thing you ever faced before the actual military. And I had the surgery scheduled 2 days after. And I remember I was like, because you come and you have all these stories, basically from every group of 20 kids, from every group of 20 kids, maybe 2 or 3 get to actually qualify for the Shayetet to start the course. So then again, the stories, like, oh, this guy and that guy, and this one is like triathlon, and this guy is this, and this guy is a swimmer. I remember I told myself, like, listen, I don't care who is anyone in here. They can't make me do, possibly, there's nothing that they can make me do that will break me. Even if they, I don't know, I don't want to give you the example, but in my head it was like so extreme.
So just to clarify for people listening, so what you were just describing now, and of course, correct me if I'm wrong, was qualifying essentially tryouts in order to get accepted to start the course for SEALs, in which that is going to, you're about to get to that essentially. That will be a continued tryout as well, but it's really just qualifiers in order for the invitation to start training essentially to potentially become a SEAL.
Yeah. And it just, it's, even in Israel, everyone goes through the military. You really have like any talk with and say like, how did you get there? Whatever. It was like this unit that nobody actually knows that you don't know. You only hear stories or whatever. It was like so far fetched back then, because I didn't have access to people who can tell me, oh, I've done that. I got connected with some 2 brothers that have beautiful organization called Nirim that later on I volunteered, and also opened a nonprofit here in New York that, I got in touch with, and were able to guide me through. But yeah, it was this dream that, okay, now I'm accepted and I'm starting the course.
So this is awesome. So you get accepted. I have 2 questions here. You get accepted, then tell us how you then get the surgery and then go back to, what's the timeline there? Accepted, a few days later, surgery, and then when are you called in to start essentially?
Yeah, so I did it like 2 days later, and basically the operation is like maybe a month later, even an eye doctor can see that you did the operation. So they came back to me at some tests at certain point, because at some tests I had like some vision problems, but then like, I smoothed it around, and the asthmatic part was only a problem when we start diving, which I was like, I'm claustrophobic, by the way. So like everything, like the diving, because the diving machines in the Shayetet is like, it's not like a regular oxygen, right? It's like a closed oxygen machine, small, like this on your chest. Breathe, you stop. So it's like almost like breathing from a bag. So the first time I was like, oh my God, how can I breathe? And I was like paranoid, but I just pushed it through. And that's it. I didn't face it. So I was like, listen, I was excited. I had some time before I started. I had like a few months. I flew to my sister. My sister back then lived in Australia. I had like a month and a half in Australia. It was amazing experience. And then basically came to the military, did the medic school for like 4 months with some other guys, and then started the course. And
Okay,
which
so
basically you start at my team we started 46 kids that have been through all the tests, and we basically finished 16. We're a team of 16 at the end.
right. So yeah, that's high attrition rate. So essentially, you did the pre-qualifying tryouts, got accepted, did your eye surgery, did a trip to Australia real quick, and then, as you just mentioned, right now started essentially boot camp, right, geared toward becoming a SEAL. So let's start there. I mean, tell us how that experience was, what it was like starting with that 40 plus minus and finishing with less than half of that.
Yeah, so we have something that's called Mechin. It's like, I don't know, if the 3 months and then like 2 weeks of pressure week that you sleep like 2 hours a night, and you just, man, it's just such an abuse in people. But my course is basically when we get to that phase, it's during the winter. So the most difficult part for people there is the cold, right? So like basically you don't have schedule, you don't know. You just like, even you wake up 3 minutes speed on the beach, and then you do your morning swim. Like it's 800 meters, and you do it probably like 3, 4, 5 times, who knows how many. And I think in the first month and a half, maybe like 15 guys already just sign off. Like, I want out. Right. I don't want to do it. So that's the main part. I think, a lot of times you think like, why are we doing all this stuff? How is that helpful? Like, whenever we're gonna, do these things, and whenever doing operations, we're gonna have to go through this stuff. Like, for example, we had this like facility of like ropes, and we had like rings in a wall of like 6 feet. You have to climb them, you have to do the walls, and then at the end you do like monkey bars and whatever. So all the punishments between the sea and there. And we literally had like kids, guys like with because you do all the drills here, so their skin is literally peeled off. Like, you see their like their flesh, like it's completely out. And you see guys like going even to the dining room, they can't even hold a plate. So they're like, because once you open the hands like this, and this is open, it's just like so painful. You just see guys sharing like this, and if the instructors see that you're having a hard time, so when everyone goes to sleep, they come to you like, psst, after like, they make sure that you fall asleep first, and then they come to you, psst, Ellie, 3 minutes speedo on the beach, and then they start like, when everyone's asleep, they try to break you. So I feel like that basically the goal in the beginning is not professionally. So the first 3 months, anything you need to learn, you're going to learn. They want to see if mentally they can break you or you can sustain, right? And the one thing that is like amazing, there's one guy from my team that he came from like Ramle, and he's like not the typical Shayetet guy, like a tough neighborhood in Israel. And he started at a team a year before us, and then we asked him like questions, like, because he got injured, like, what was there, how did you do, blah blah. And then, okay, how are you at running? He said, I don't know how to run. Like, how are you in like, I don't know, journeys or whatever, that you put weights and start walking, on the sand we did 80 kilometers, even the biggest one. He said, I was worse, I was this, I was that. And we're like, I don't understand how this guy can become a soldier if he doesn't even know how to swim. Like, he swim with his head out like this, like a dog. And the same guy, within like 6 months in one of the rounds, I won't forget, he finished first before an Australian friend of mine that was an athlete before the military. So it was just an example that if you put your mind into it, and if you're strong mentally, you can achieve everything. You can become professional. You can become a much better runner, a much better swimmer. But in order to get into the pool, that was a lot of the times was much colder than the sea, and in the middle of the night, and then they send you to sleep for 30 minutes, and then they bring you back out, and like this, like 5-6 times, you literally have people crying in your room. And you need to be mentally strong. Every night at the end of the day, we're doing a round with everyone. And basically they give you the values of the unit, the values of also the military, and I don't know, like committed to the mission and friendship and like basic values in life. And then you have to say everything that you did wrong the same day. I gave up on the round. I gave up on this. When we did that drill, I gave up on myself and didn't help my friends. So all of a sudden, and that's something when I came to New York, it was like, professionally, I was like, oh, I did this wrong. And I saw people looking at me weird. But admitting, like being accountable for what you did wrong is something that is very hard to a lot of people. And I think that's something that, we always do debriefs after, even if it's a practice, obviously operations, being able to debrief yourself and looking at yourself and saying, I did this wrong, this could have been done better next time. That's what changes you as a professional, as a human being, regardless, with friends, with colleagues, with whatever you do. I think that's probably the best values I got during my service, and together with knowing that I'm capable of the most extreme stuff. So keep on pushing that feeling that, that nothing is out of my reach. Is something that definitely from this unit going on with my life, and it's with everything I do with the company I'm in today, is something that is I think that's very obvious and very like you can see it immediately. My employees, my team, the way we work, the transparency, the accountability, the pushing through the limits that we think there are the limits. I think it's something that I got.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you mentioned them, two very important values and translatable. It's more than just skills. I mean, translatable values, essentially. One is mentality, right? The ability to overcome, so long as you put your mind to it and you have that determination and dedication. And then the second is accountability, right? Is the ability to say to yourself, to your team, to those around you, hey, I did XYZ wrong, and could bring up solutions on how you could improve that or ask for improvement. But so long as you can bring up those accountability elements of yourself, it allows for growth, like you mentioned in your service, and like you mentioned you brought to your company now. So that's awesome. Before we finish military really and get to professional, you walked us through a handful of stories and examples of training. What was it like, continuing in this chronological order? What was it like getting accepted to the unit? And then any stories you have while in the unit?
I feel like when you're doing the course, you're nothing in the base, right? Like when you think about Chad, it's like, I don't know what I can say or cannot, but basically the amount, there's probably like 5 or 6 or 7 different soldiers, not combat fighter, on every fighter, or even maybe even 10. And so when you finish the course, you're like, king there. Everyone looks up to you, and it's something. But during the course, you're just like day to day, and you're not thinking too far. You're just like, I need to finish the course. I need to finish the course, because again, like we started 46 and we finished 16. And so when you finish, it's just it's amazing. And then this last week, again, I don't know if I can talk about it too much. There was an article in Israel about the capture week that we do in special unit. So that was also pivotal moment for us. And once you're done with that, you're a fighter, and everyone treat you this way. But the service, man, was amazing. It was amazing. Compared to other special units in the military, they say that Shayetet is fighting the war between the wars, because basically we have the capability to get anywhere from the sea without knowing. So all the very complicated, logistically very impossible missions we're doing, and even if we're not, like, even if it involves other units, there are certain operations that you can do only with our units, only with us bringing you, into the shore. So I'll say that compared to other units, and we were very active. So I had a lot of active operations, and it was, very fulfilling to do what we were trained to do. And I think that also, I spoke about it before, but in the beginning, you're like, oh, when do ever I'm gonna face like such difficulties like doing operations? But then you do it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why, like staying stationary when you're tired and you're freezing and you're coming from the sea in the north, wherever it is, and staying for 2 hours not moving, and you're shaking and your hands are so cold, so you don't know if something's gonna happen. I don't know if I can even use my finger to shoot. I can't move my hands. So like this mentality of like pushing through, and some operations we have to swim with very heavy equipment. I was also machine gun and had I was very heavy. So I think that at the end, finishing the operations, it really gave me the feeling that, everything I did is not for nothing. And if you looking and absorbing and looking at every situation, you can see how you can bring your added value, how you can bring your discipline, how you can bring the hard work into whatever you do. And I took it to life, and I think it's it's noticeable. If someone is Shayetet, it's noticeable. So definitely was a great service, and I'm very grateful. It's like an amazing family for life. My team is, we try to meet like every year. We fly somewhere, and now they're a little bit busy, but it's again a family, and again who I am who I am today because of the course, because of my service, for sure.
Yeah, I love that you close that out and bring up the pride element. I think that's something that is easily lost on us as veterans, generally speaking, in civilian and professional world, where that's no longer our ecosystem, or maybe we feel distance from that identity, and it sometimes can cause like just friction internally. So I love that you bring up pride for your service and for your team and for your unit. So that's really nice, and just like to highlight that for everyone to hear. All right, awesome, man. So,
and if I can add,
go ahead, please.
leave politics aside, like who, you're right or left or whatever it is. I think what it does when you're 18 and all of a sudden you're given 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, for something greater than you, it changes you as a person, right? And a lot of other places, they don't serve in the military, they don't serve at all. So you just get and get and get. And as Israeli, and even the people that choose to do the service, they give. And I think that, given a significant part of your life, it changed your whole perception.
It's a really good point to add, and just giving, right? Don't just be taking your whole life. A means of service, right? And I mean, that could be done in a lot of ways. It doesn't only have to be military. It doesn't have to be in such a extended period of time in your life, but just giving in some capacity can just do a lot for you as a person and for those around you as well. I mean, there's so many takeaways from it. Well said, man. Moving from a military experience, and by the way, I sense that you don't necessarily want to bring up particular whether it be operations or circumstances during your service, and that's fine. If something comes to mind that you do want to share, can share, please do. Nonetheless, moving to finishing your service and that transition period from military to civilian, walk us through what that was like for you.
Yeah, so there's by the way, obviously I can talk about operations and things like that, and in that particular unit. But we used to have a term in Shayetet. It's called before even Drake came up with the song, but it was 0 to 100 and 100 to 0, and because that we have to execute in a week, which is insane for the type of complicated operations that we had to do, and so many things involved. It's not just you have the boats, you have this, you have that, and so 100 to 0, and then 0 to 100 and then 100 to 0. So you come back to the base, whatever happened, you do the brief, you go home, and then you're like, that stuff. And you have that transition also moving to, civilian life, because as a Shayetet in Israel, everyone look up to you, everyone want to be around you. It's like, everyone proud of you. And all of a sudden, I finish at 24, and people are already in the university, about to finish, some other, do stuff, and a lot of people going for, after the service for even a year trip, and then realizing what they want to do when they're off. So you're like 27, 28, I have friends, at almost 30 finished their first degree and starting the civilian life. Could go, and I did like my equivalent SIT. I also got accepted to a good school. I was like thinking about doing computer science. My sister was an engineer for many years, and her husband was also, and that was a safety route. But then in my mind, I was like, listen, I'm going to go to school like 3-4 years, and then I'm going to make this type of salary and just climb up. I'm going to finish school. I'm going to be 28, 29. And I was like, I wanted to try my luck. So at the beginning it was like, I'm going to fly to the US for like a short period of time. And I did like a small trip after the military, like a month and a half. And with another friend that was an officer, so he finished the same as me. And then I connected through the unit to a guy that had a small company back then in New York, real estate company. And I was like, let's go, let's see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, I can always come back. But it was always a dream of mine to live abroad somewhere. And the US, New York was always a dream. And I mentioned before, we also trained with Navy SEAL. So we've been training with Navy SEALs, I was like 21. We did 2 weeks in Virginia, amazing, facilities and all that stuff. And then we had 1 week wherever we want. And so we did New York and Miami. And I remember after New York, I told my friend that unfortunately passed, but I told him like, I'm going to be back in New York. So the first opportunity I even asked to release earlier because we had operations that we just finished. And I flew to New York and I was like, okay, let's go. So
That's awesome.
From 100 to 0, starting from scratch, something, whatever it is. I didn't even know what I'm coming for.
Yeah. So I'd like to dig in on that a little bit. I mean, you highlighted, right, that 0 to 100, 100 to 0. And you also highlighted, all right, well, now you're transitioning to being a civilian, and, people are obviously, of course, in their own worlds. And all of a sudden you're kind of left in this in-between state where you're not necessarily sure what you want to do, as you were talking about, or that people are, focused on you as they were before when you were in service just a minute ago, essentially, right? So how did you kind of overcome that stage of life for you?
You have to put your pride aside. Again, just that shift from being Shayetet to going to, I won't forget, I arrived to New York, and I arrived into a 4-bedroom apartment in East Harlem. I had 2 French roommates and 1 Colombian. He was a drug dealer, by the way. I had like this, like a squeezed bedroom I didn't even have sheets. I walked into it. I was like, okay, this is my life now. But for me, again, like coming from a very modest, family, I was like, I don't have safety net. I want to create my own safety net. I didn't really know how. I was like, probably now is the right time to try. And if not, I can always come back. But to be honest, my mentality, it was not an option. I was like, I'm going to make it work, whatever it is. And I was like 100% in it. And just, you have to shift sometimes. And it happened to me actually later on with COVID, but you sometimes have to reassess and see what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you
just
brought up,
you got to take the risk sometimes. Like
it sounds like you brought up a few strategies there that you kind of took. One was being driven, to tackle your goal of essentially being successful in joining real estate, it sounds like, right? Which is what I'm about to ask next. next? So walk us through that process, right? What happens next? You move to New York. Where do you go from there? You get into this crazy apartment
But by the way,
situation.
what I was saying is that I didn't have a safety net. Like I didn't have parents to pay for me. I didn't have money. So I wanted to create my safety net. And I was like, I have nothing to lose at this point. And so I came to New York. I was introduced to a guy that was really a fan of the unit. You probably know him as well. We probably shouldn't drop the name, but back then he had a small short-term rental company. So basically, he master leased a lot of apartments with the landlord, and took the apartment, maybe did like a small touch up, setting up the apartment, buying furniture, and then renting it short-term, 1 month or more. And so when I came, I was doing everything in the company. So from like showing apartments, advertising, going to fix plumbing issues that I didn't even know how to solve. And back then, I don't know, the internet was not where it was. So I was like figuring out stuff and dealing with crazy clients and even the first few months of just understanding which neighborhoods I am. And think like the first month I showed people apartments back then in like $4,000 or $5,000, and I didn't even know where I am. And you're supposed to, tell them why this location is the greatest and why this building. So I was, I loved it. I was just like thrown into the, deep water. And I'm good with people. I love people. I love, to create conversations. I think it's like it's a real passion of mine. So I'm not faking it when I'm talking with someone and creating connection. I feel like everyone is interesting. I can have with anyone, good, deep conversation about their life. And so I think that was an advantage working with people, right? So, just, I think that the first year was just getting the hold of it, right? Showing apartments, advertising, taking care of whatever maintenance was in the apartment. It was just like doing everything. And so that's how I started. And then the owner of the company that later on we became partners, he had a startup. And the manager of the office left. So all of a sudden I was in the position of the manager. And so all of a sudden managing employees, we didn't have that many employees, but it was like 3-4 employees that I was working with them. And all of a sudden I'm their boss. That was a transition. But I had a good opportunity to be exposed to everything through a small business. So I was exposed to legal. I was exposed to accounting, financing, acquisition, meaning like reaching out to new landlords, getting new products, and there was a lot of there were many things that improved in the company back then. Like back then, we used to just like go to IKEA and buy furniture. I said like, okay, let's bring a designer. Let's make the apartments more appealing. It's worth to put a little bit more money and other marketing approaches and working on the website and Google campaigns and SEO, understanding everything. So I had an opportunity to touch really a lot of things that no matter what business you're gonna in which industry, you're gonna have to have some knowledge and basic knowledge in all of them. And I got the opportunity to really be exposed to a lot of things at that time. So it was
that's
really brilliant experience.
That's awesome. That's like the classic in a similar experience. And, I hear it a lot in our industry in the built environment. It's the classic sink or swim, right? It's you figure it out and you'll therefore create opportunities to continue excelling or you sink and you might have to shift or you stay, I don't know, miserable in that scenario. So awesome to hear that you learned it and were able to leverage it. I also want to double down on my mistake that you corrected, and I'm happy you did, where you created your own safety net in order to propel you forward. Can you hash that out a little bit? Like I'm very curious. I'm sure other people are too. What did that mean to create your own safety net?
I remember I had this conversation with a teammate, not from my team, but we sat in Tel Aviv in my sister's apartment. We were drinking and talking about life and everything. And his father was very wealthy, So when we were talking about the plans, what we're going to do after the military, it was like, yeah, maybe I'm going to work with him. Maybe I'm going to go to university. It's like, you can do whatever he wants. He can take his time. For me, I was 24.
Mhm.
I didn't have too much help. I didn't have help from my parents. They wouldn't be able to pay for basically anything. And I wanted to create myself. I wanted to work very hard to feel comfortable financially. And like everyone that started with like any venture, and all of a sudden, you have more money than your expenses monthly, and all of a sudden you feel like, oh wow, I can live comfortably, and I can go to a restaurant and not think if the credit card will go through, or I can go to vacation, I can afford this, I can afford that. And this, a lot of people, by the way, I always say, like, there's nothing to be ashamed if you're coming from a wealthy family. Like, your parents probably worked very hard for you to have that safety net and do whatever you want. But for me, it was not there, and I had to create it to myself. And I also had so much expectation for myself, and also everyone around me always had so many expectations from me. And I wanted to dream big. I didn't want to go the same route and go and do degree and then get a job and make a little money in the beginning, and then maybe after 5 years I have a little bit more money. I didn't want that route, because I wanted to create something for myself, and I felt like that was the right time to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always awesome to hear exactly your story, right? It's somebody not taking the traditional route and essentially just working hard and being driven in order to create a career path for themselves, just for people to hear and understand that it is possible. And if the traditional quote unquote route of school and such is not for you, it's not the only way. So that's really awesome, man. So take us to next steps. How does I'm guessing is chapter next in your story?
Yeah, I think that maybe there were like some pivotal points during my career there. I think that basically going out there and creating more businesses, and one business that we created is basically, there was one building that we identified that we had transient use. So transient use basically mean that you can operate the building as a hotel. So we had already the list on the building. We started going through the process with the city, expedite, and all that stuff. We got that. Then we opened other locations of small boutique hotels. And then what happened with the rest of the company is we had few buildings in Harlem that we used to rent as rooms. And when we set on the numbers at the end of the year, we noticed that the rooms, it wasn't a co-living back then, but the rooms had much better numbers. The occupancy rate was much higher, because you can rent a room and people can stay for years. Young professional people that just moved to the city and don't want to commit and don't want to rent from a random Joe and listen to what he said. Just rent directly from the management company. And then we shifted to co-living, and we really grew the business to more than 500 rooms in New York. And 500 rooms means 500 tenants. So we grew the company to impressive size. And also the hotel business, we opened a new hotel in Jersey City, and we expanded the businesses. And then COVID came, and since we were hospitality business, and we got hit pretty hard. We had more than 50% of our tenants were international. So when COVID happened, in 1 week, we had 50% of our tenants moving out. And then the 50% that left, maybe half of them paid rent. So
wow.
And the hotels, we had to close locations, and it was a very difficult moment for me and my partner, that we became partners with the years. And dealing with I'll say probably the most difficult stage in my life, even more than the service and everything. And again, that 100 to 0, we were just in talks with a VC and from Israel, a very known one, on a term sheet to raise money for the company and basically scale it up. And then COVID happened.
Wow.
And so it's really from 100 to 0.
Right.
And, you know, I was not young again. When I finished the military, I was 24. Now I'm probably almost, probably 30.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, I didn't want to be here at 30 years old. And, you know, it was really a difficult period of time. But we had to, you know, looking backwards, this amazing experience, what we had to deal with and what creative solutions we came up with and negotiation with landlords and all that period of time. You know, we were able to weather the storm, and at that point, me and my partner decided to separate. I stayed 6 months in the company just to stabilize everything. We even got to a point of break even and start making some money again. I didn't want to leave him by himself, but we decided that at this environment, there's no room for the both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I also felt like, you know, I wanna move, you know, along from this industry, from this business, and then I think that's an important moment for everyone, because I want to share that.
Please. Yeah.
Because it's again from 100 to 0.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I volunteered in a lot of organizations, and I gave a lot and met with a lot of people, and people knew what I was doing. And all of a sudden, I needed to put the ego aside and I basically start reaching out to people. Everyone I know, I was like, let's sit for coffee. Let's talk. And I told them, listen, I'm done with my business. I'm looking for my next venture. And I didn't want to take a job, but I was sitting with people that offered me certain positions. But at this point, I just met with anyone I can, just listen to different ideas and different businesses, and met with different people, different offers to start new ventures. I had also a position for a startup company that was an idea, but I decided not to go through this route. And you know, sometimes in life we need to put ego aside and just, people are happy to help, and we don't understand that. Mm-hmm. But we need to give them the opportunity. We need to be open enough to say, you know, I got to this point, I need help. Let's meet. Give me ideas. What are your thoughts? And I was overwhelmed by how people were, you know, it gave me also the boost that I need from my confidence, that people are like very interested. Hey, let's meet. You want to do this? Like people that did, you know, developers and mm-hmm. very successful business people wanted to meet with me and wanted to see what they can do with me. So I was very privileged to see that. And I think it gave me a lot of confidence to go with my next venture, that was Chapter.
I mean, first of all, I want to say that sounds like an amazing recovery that I'm sure was not easy. As you mentioned, it wasn't getting back to break even and even starting to produce, revenue, cash flow with that prior business before Chapter, that is, when COVID happened. So congrats on that. That's a big accomplishment. Then I want to highlight that, I don't know how I want to term it, but putting ego aside and asking for help as it relates to transition periods. As you pointed out, that 0 to 100, 100 to 0. I think that can do a lot for a lot of people in many situations. If you're able to just simply, put ego aside and ask for help, see what you can do to help, and see how that kind of evolves toward your next, stage or whatever it is that you need at that point. So really, really amazing that you were able to kind of realize that and accomplish that, especially after what you described. I mean, those are tough moments, right? With the whole COVID thing really specifically affecting your industry and your business. Amazing. So, as we continue in your professional career, and especially now as we're about to touch on Chapter, you've already highlighted a bunch of these, but just keep in mind these translatable skill sets. So, I guess to this point, what are some things that come to mind? And of course, you can just repeat what you've already said if that's what comes to mind. Just trying to highlight it for our listeners to kind of embrace and apply to themselves, however it means to them.
Yeah, I think, like, again, that period of time, like, about to raise money and scale your business, and all of a sudden, I had to pay more than $500,000 in rents every month, and nobody's paying me.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared, it was serious.
Sure.
And my way of dealing with it, I remember I also told my wife back then, I told her, because she was very worried about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, listen, for the first month, I told her, I want to be sad. I want to be frustrated. I want to be angry. I want to let it all out. I want to feel sorry for myself, So like, I wanted to just let it go. And I feel like it's part of that debriefing from the military, like I failed. Why did I fail? What I could have done better, and what other opportunities on the way I could have take advantage of, and what I did bad in the business. So for 1 month, I was just like, while I'm, fighting for the company, I really let myself sink into that and embrace that and not run away from it. So all the bad thoughts, all the, like where I am and what I've done better. So this was like a 1 month of really, getting into it. And then I just shift again, that 0 to 100, and putting myself out there and not being afraid to reach out to people, push through. Mentally, a lot of people would give up, but I was just pushing through, and I know that I'm capable of a lot. So I said, listen, you're gonna go through. So staying positive during difficult times. And it's easy to say, because at that moment it's very hard to be positive. But like debriefing the situation, debriefing that 5-6 years run, what I've done good, what I could have done better, what I will do better next time, learn from that. And only then, after you finish with that period of time and let yourself really do it, open yourself to be vulnerable, open yourself to meet with people, listen to what they have to say, share with them your frustration, share with them your feelings. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And every business person will tell you, that they failed so many times and they've been in the situation so many times. So, that was the key for me.
Not only is there nothing to be ashamed of, but you'll also probably make a deeper connection with, a fellow business person per se, right? Because they'll certainly have some form of relatability to what you're saying, and it is definitely not easy by any means. So congrats for pushing through all that. That's amazing advice and insight in terms of how you use your military skill sets, translated it into personal and professional careers. That's awesome, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Chapter if you're ready for it.
Yeah. So we didn't talk about it, but I used to do like small fix and flip, small development, and in that course, and by the way, in different markets. Also, in that 6 months period between the one company I had to Chapter, and I was offered to open a fund in Miami. I went there. I didn't really agree with the business model, but then I met with someone there that really inspired me, like a young guy that just moved from New York and all in, just start buying properties and get money from this guy and this guy. So I put myself also once again into renovation project, like a fix and flip. And I was facing the same issues in every project. The GC that is not showing up, that is not answering, that is not delivering, that's trying, that is not getting enough money, although you agreed on the contract and terms and the payments, and the designer that design and doesn't know anything about construction. And a lot of times, like, the architects and designers will not really focus on what's important to the client, like the timeline, the budget that you're trying to stay in, especially when you're a developer. So I really faced as a client all the pain points that everyone facing when they're renovating their home. And I met with with someone that I got connected through a nonprofit, and I was volunteering in till today. And by the way, this is a good example of giving and how it can come back. But basically, he donated to one of the events, and we stayed in touch, and then we met, and we ran like few business ideas. We had a good connection, and he's a big developer in the city, and he was also the GC of his biggest project, like 180 units condo and rental in Chelsea, very known, well-known projects called Chelsea Maverick, and the idea of, and he had already a GC, but he was working B2B, like more business to business as a developer. And then we got to the home renovation industry. I told him from my experience, because I also had some experience. I opened with a friend construction company a few years back, and I told him, listen, the margins are really good in the home renovation industry. And when you look out there and you look at the competition, even in New York, there's extremely competitive market, and the companies that are successful in this city makes millions of dollars. First of all, they don't invest in the marketing. They don't invest in the brand. There's zero technology. They don't invest in creating clear processes. And it's almost a feeling like they want to finish the project, get as much money as they can, rather than looking at the big picture. And so when I did the market research, I saw that, with my experience, very easily we can surpass the competition in terms of the marketing, in terms of the branding, in terms of having technology involved, becoming more efficient, in terms of having like very clear processes. And on top of it, I like the fact that there's a healthy margin in that industry, because, and I spoke about it with someone the other day when we spoke about management companies and how horrible they are. And I told him the business model, and I told him margins are so small that the first thing you give up on is customer service and customer experience. So being in an industry that the margins are healthy, we can easily create much better experience. We can easily, create a client-centric company and really focus on the experience of the client. And because, most people, it's like the second biggest investment in life, renovating their apartment. So we said, we see the possibility, and we see the potential with my skill set that I got from before, creating brands, websites, marketing, SEO. I thought that I can compete well with the leading companies in New York, and we just went for it.
That's so awesome, man. I always love the stories when, you were essentially experiencing the pain points yourself for a while in a variety of ways, realized that there was a gap in terms of why the pain point exists and fixing that pain point, and then you just address it head on. So kudos to that. That's love those stories always. So what happens next then? What's the next steps with Chapter?
Yeah, so basically we started, me and my partner, and I was doing at this point everything. So we basically had this GC license, so we can work under his company, but we didn't have a website, we didn't have anything. So, start working on marketplaces, advertising in marketplaces, and, looking for a project manager, going out there for sales. But also, you have to understand, I think that one of the biggest advantage of me is that I didn't grow up in the construction industry. So from the outside, I saw a lot of things that can be improved.
Sure.
But then also, I didn't have the knowledge. I had the knowledge as a developer. I knew what was done and how to work with a GC and designers and architects, but I didn't know enough to sell like a high-end renovation project. So from that moment, I was like really, while I'm working on everything in the company, I was investing so many hours on learning everything I can about design, about materials, about, from videos on YouTube, differences between, different type of woods and how you install wood floors with glue, without nails, and the different stones that you can use. I went to showrooms every weekend and literally tell the salesperson in different places, yeah, I'm renovating my place. What should I use? This material and that material. So I try to get as much information as I can, and in order to be good at what we're doing. But I also felt like it was important for me to go through everything. So be the salesperson, be the project manager, help with the design, doing the expediting. And I felt that it's very important for me to understand the business inside out before I start to delegate. So the first 6 months while we're, building the brand, and together with a great company called Squat, and that they're doing branding, I had to do a shout out for Itamar, a great guy. And we built this amazing brand called Chapter. Basically, it's transition in life, because any renovation is transition. You need a new apartment, second apartment, increasing more bedrooms because there are kids coming, and vacation home, whatever. It's all about transitions of life and chapters of life. So we created that brand, and I experienced everything. So I was doing in the beginning everything, and slowly we start building the team. And once we had the website up and running, and actually start doing real marketing, it was just nothing like any other company in the city. And we really exploded super quick, and just again emphasizing on very clear processes. A lot of other GCs in the city, they don't even have project management software, probably 95% of them. And so creating clear processes, clarifying stakeholders, what's responsibility under what, because that's the one thing that falls between the cracks on every renovation project. Is it the architect and designer? And so everything we experience as we go, we just built into the company. So in the beginning, we're just a GC, and then we're like, I saw that even clients that tell me, oh, I know exactly what I want, all of a sudden I found myself with them like shopping and spending hours on picking materials. So I was like, you know what? I want a designer that is in-house, right? It's not something super new. There are other designer build company, but I saw the advantage of having a designer in-house that can communicate directly with the project manager, but also knows construction and knows the constraint of the client. So if the client has a tight budget, don't start offering things that is out of his budget. So he feels like, I can afford it. I like it, but I can afford it. Offer him things that he can afford, that fits his budget. Don't offer changes in the project that's going to be costly, or don't offer things, if the timeline is very tight, don't offer things that are going to increase the timeline, because then there's just another issue. So really creating efficient way of working as a team and bringing the best results to the client based on what I experienced before as a developer, and my partner is a big time developer, and also what I experienced while doing the project. I saw like where we can improve. And so that was, a big pivot. Today we have a really big, amazing design team. And one of the biggest things that happened was the technology. So in the beginning when you look for project management software that is curated for, home improvements or things like that, there are good products out there. They're sufficient. But my problem was that the CRM didn't connect to the project management software. And all the project management software didn't have open API, because they basically had like a CRM as well, but not as advanced. And they didn't want, most softwares would try to keep you in and give you as many projects as they can. It really bothered me, because I wanted to learn from the data, from the first moment someone reached out all the way through the projects and change orders and payments and this. I wanted to understand better like that. And that's when we decided to develop the technology. So we hired an amazing VP of product, and another UX UI designer, another product manager. We have a development team in India, and very, very good. And all of a sudden, we were building a product. and we just started the company. And so I think, today when I look at the software that we built today, that from one side is a project management software for the project manager. That basically the project manager, designer, everyone can collaborate on one board of a project, do all their tasks, wave, this is done, and update the schedule and everything. And from the other side, the client has a client portal that's connected to that project management software. That basically anything that you do on one side is being pushed automatically to the client. So if you change the schedule, the client can see it immediately, and it can see also the previous date. And the client can, a lot of projects, you have so many emails, invoices, change orders, you don't even know where you're at. So the client has a financial deck that you can see what was the original contract, how much the change orders, how much you spend on materials. Material selection is being done also through the software. Project manager upload daily photos. So if the client is not in the apartment, you can always see what's happening. So I feel like very efficiently and seamlessly, we create that transparency that the industry, lack, because everything that you do from one side is automatically being pushed to the client. So the client always knows what's going on. And now I have the data from the moment that someone clicks on an ad all the way to finish a project. So we can analyze the data and continue to improve and continue to improve our process and become more efficient, especially when today we have close to 40 projects only in New York. And so we always think about how becoming more efficient, how to solve the problems before we even get there. So I'm really happy we were able to kind of like close the product, and now I feel like we're almost complete, but we're always improving.
That's really amazing. I kind of defined all of, or a lot of what you're saying as simply a modern process, right? A lot of what we're seeing in industry is just dated, not really thought through or updated in order to, be aligned with other processes in life and in business. So kind of modernizing that entire process while also allowing for, as you keep pointing out, is a transparency over what's happening in that process, right? In that modern process, which allows for better outcome for a client to just understand what's happening, understand why, see what's happening. So that's really awesome. It's, I think, easy to track what you're saying, and also just easily recognize, right, in terms of the pain point that exists typically, generally speaking, and then how you're solving for it. So that's amazing. And I especially love the technical side of it that you're mentioning, where you're tracking the data from first touch point all the way through to completion in order to, create efficiencies in that process. So really well said. Did I do a good job of summarizing what you've built?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's exactly that. You said it right. Modernizing an industry that, that needs it. And people spend a lot of money. I'll say one more thing.
Please.
Oh, go ahead. We're a little bit delayed with the internet, but I'll say one more thing. GCs can make a lot of money doing projects, right? As a company, like you have companies here that have been working for 10 years, they make a lot of money. Why not invest in the customer? Why not invest in the process, in the experience? Why not? You can allow yourself. But it's that type of industry that it's always like grabbing the money and making most of it and fighting for every dollar. When sometimes even if the client is wrong or you told them, I always tell my PMs, like, think about the bigger picture. Yeah. You want the client to be happy. So now you're going to fight on $1,000 or $1,500 of a $300K project, and you're going to finish, the project beater with no, think big picture. We want to create this brand that people really had good experience in sharing it. And again, the idea was creating that product and taking the same product and the same process to other markets. And that's what we did. We opened Miami, and we're planning on opening 2 more locations this year. But really client-centric product and always improving. We're here for the customer. And I feel like sometimes in this industry, people forget that, and they're focusing on how much they're going to net from each project, when I don't think that's the right approach. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Congrats on the expansion, Miami and the other locations. That's awesome. Excited to see where the other ones will be. And what I was thinking also is that, what you're describing is almost what people generally expect for lots of other industries, right? I mean, you could walk into, I don't know, a shopping experience and you're going to expect that things are catered to the person buying, right? So why should it be any different in construction, especially when it's such a, to the point of the name of your company, right? A chapter in your life. It's such a big investment, right? So I think once more people, more companies, exactly like you, exactly like Chapter, start to kind of make dents in the market, it's going to have to shift because clients are going to, right, the customer pool is going to start understanding, well, actually there's clearly a better way of going about it. There's clearly a better experience for me as the paying client. So I'm going to go to that company who's servicing me versus the traditional way, which I think is going to, slowly but surely over time, just die out, just go away. So really, really awesome to see that innovation approach, that you have that mindset to the industry. And as you're expanding with it, I have no doubt it's going to continue being successful because you're catering to the client versus to yourself and to, internal business means. That's awesome, man. So move into our next phase. I want to give you the opportunity to speak to a career win, and it could be, something you already said, but just letting you plug that, highlight something that you're proud of or some things that you're proud of.
I think that, one thing that I implemented, by the way, from the military is, I read this interesting book. I forget the name. But basically, I'll say that the most difficult part in creating a business is the people, 100% the people, right? Like hiring the right people for what you need and creating an environment and culture that people are happy to come in the morning and happy to do their work and happy to work with your customer. It's something that is it's very difficult, and keep them happy is also something that is very difficult. Definitely a big win for me was recovering within, like 6 months from losing everything that I built to creating Chapter. But like I said before, it's an industry when the margins are relatively healthy. And I think that's something that I'm very proud of is the team and the culture that we created here in Chapter. And to see them come into the office smiling and happy, dealing with customers, as much as construction can be, very stressful, people doing their home and clients can be out of the mind sometimes. I always tell the project managers are almost therapists, with clients. You're inside the project, until you get approved and with the building architectural plans and then start construction like 6-7 months in. But I think a big win for me is my team today. I built an amazing team. I love each one of them. And what I was about to say is that one book that also spoke about hiring, right? Like, so you look at a person and that is basically, can he do the job? Does he need the job, right? The regular questions that people ask before. You ask yourself, does he really need that job? He's capable. The regular questions that you ask yourself before hiring someone. But I decided at a certain point to write down all the values of the company. Right? So I have 6 values that everyone that comes in, we review them together. And it's not just a word, right? We go over it. But a lot of the most important value for me, and I always tell to people, is accountability from the unit, transparency and honesty. By the way, in my unit, if you caught lying, you get kicked out immediately. So that's a no-go. You always have to be transparent. You always have to speak the truth. Being agile is one of them. And, like always improving, because a lot of the GCs are very old-fashioned, don't want to change anything. So we have like 6 values. Make it simple as well. And what else? And we're structured. The structure, the processes. So when I hire, I look at the values and I'm saying, is that person in front of me? It doesn't matter if he's designer, if he's marketing, if he's content creator, social media, and he's an architect, whatever it is, a salesperson. He needs to fit the criteria of my values, the company's values. If I don't see the values in that person, I don't hire them. And I think that's something that I'm very proud of. I have very honest people here, accountable, amazing people, and really, I love my team.
That's an amazing answer. Love that value system. And I have to absolutely agree that people are not only the most important part, but also one of the most difficult things to attract and to retain within a company that is, talent, generally speaking. So yeah, very well said. That's an awesome set of career wins. Thank you for sharing that, man.
Of course, yeah. I think it's important. Sometimes, everyone had the business knows that the people is the most difficult, most rewarding. Like everything is around it, and if you're able to build a great team, it's not an easy task. So definitely something to be proud of.
Totally. So, all right. So shifting into our last phase of our discussion, we're going to hit your wellness practice and or a book or books you want to recommend to listeners.
Okay. So if you don't mind, I'll do both.
Please.
And so wait, I need to put it out, and because I sent it to one of my employees about this book, the salesperson actually, and because this book actually changed my entire approach. So my previous partner used to be a great salesperson, great intuition, and he recommended me this book, Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff, which is just like, it's a book about sales, but not only direct sales, it's understanding the frames and the situations you're at, and reading the situation, understanding what everyone wants and how I can achieve mine, or do I give something. So that's a great book for anything in life. I think like sales is basically everything. It's relationship, it's friendship, it's, I want a vacation, I want a raise, I want my girlfriend to go with me to a vacation. I want, everything is about convincing people to what you want to achieve. So this is a great book, great read. I read it like 3 times. I really like it.
Nice.
And the thing for me, I have so much stress, and at work and managing so. Right now we have like a team between development and Miami where we have more than 25 people. So there's a lot of stress for me. Releasing the stress is a lot of sports, but the most important, I do sparring every week. So I do basically Muay Thai sparring every time I find someone else. Just getting all the aggression out and sweating and and now I work out with a great guy, much better fighter than me. So it's always pushing to the limit, and I feel like, for me, that's the stress relief I need. So for me, sports in general, in particular, like sparring, just fighting pace and pushing yourself to the limit, and adrenaline, and then finishing when you feel like you gave it all. And now I feel like I'm ready. So usually I do it on Friday, either Friday or Saturday, and then I feel like I can start the weekend. That's the one thing for me for sure.
Yeah, totally with you on that. Leverage physical fitness, generally speaking, as a release in very similar ways that you just described. And I think a lot of veterans in particular could relate to that, which is why we add that as a piece of the show. That's awesome, man. So thank you so much for joining the show, Ellie. It was an awesome story, amazing advice, amazing just experience overall that can be applied to so many things. I mean, I know I had a lot of takeaways myself from what you have to say. Thanks so much for your time, man.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun, and when you're in New York, we have to meet.
Absolutely,
we have to meet. So whenever you're in New York, would love to see you, and would love to meet in person. And
absolutely,
thank you. Great concept. I love spending the time with you.
Thanks so much, man. Yeah, we're definitely going to get a coffee, get a drink, get a dinner, whatever we could work out next time I visit New York. Ellie's information, his LinkedIn, his company Chapter, and also his book recommendation is going to be linked in the show notes. Thank you, everyone, for listening. A reminder to please subscribe and like our channels on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And a quick shout out to our sponsor, Jet.Build. Thanks so much, everyone. See you soon. Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build.